Authority. To discuss our topic today, we have a cross-section of Nigerian youths. 4 of them are in our studios here in Abuja. Let me start by introducing Mukhtar Ahoshile, who is a Nigerian youth. Welcome, Mukhtar.
Thank you for having me this morning.
We also have Maimunat Chenimu. You're welcome, Maimuna.
Thank you.
Some also, Gideon Obo is here with us in our studio. You're welcome, Gideon.
Thank you, sir.
We also have in the studio Yunusa Ahmed, a Nigerian youth too, who is going to be part of this discussion. Welcome, Yunusa Ahmed.
It's my pleasure, Nigerian.
All right, and then joining us from our Kaduna Network Center, would like to welcome the Reverend John Hayab, who is Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. The Reverend Hayab, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much, and viewers, good morning to all of us.
All right, but ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with what happened recently, which is the EndSARS protest. In your opinion, what was the trigger? What happened that we couldn't speak to each other, we couldn't speak to one another, and it had to then devolve into a protest? Let's begin with Mukhtar Akoshile.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Nigerians, for joining us. In my opinion, what degenerated to the EndSARS protest is simply the government, I call it lack of communication. There's a gap in communication because as Nigerian youth, you are said with me that Nigerian youth is the voice of the nation, and Nigeria has gotten to a stage whereby its youth has risen up to trying to defend the democracy that we all fought to achieve, and you know, there are so many gaps that the government has left within the youth and the elite, that's within the young people and those in government. And there were agitation, and in activism there is what we term as the 3 C's. When you consolidate, you build on it before you get to confrontation, and in the process of asking for good governance, you see that the government were not too quickly to have reacted, and that was when the so-called EndSARS protest erupted and said, okay, perhaps when the needful is not being done, maybe when we ask for it in another way, it could be attended to. And you know, the EndSARS protest started from the issue of the unit in the Nigerian police, that's the SARS unit, and now degenerated to asking for good governance, degenerated to asking for the government doing the needful in all sectors of the economy.
But Mukhtar, if I should still remain with you a little while, has there been any attempt to talk to the government in this regard from the youth, from the onset, even before this thing got hatched and then executed?
Yes, there have been, in each state, you know, there are youth organizations. I am from the Youth Council. There are other young people who also hold position in other youth organizations. And there have been agitations for the government to always involve young persons in town hall meetings, in forums that the young people can come out and say their minds. And that has been missing. I cannot really see a day or within the last 2 years that the federal government has said there's a town hall meeting for young people to come and discuss the future of this country. I am aware that the Honorable Minister of Information did so many town halls sometimes ago, but I cannot remember if there's any for the young people to come and deliberate, because the future belongs to the young people, and you cannot be discussing about Nigeria without putting the young people into the center stage.
Gideon, let me ask you the same question again in another way. Anyway, you know, there are so many channels of communication, and these communication channels involve the media, the print and the electronic. Of course, you have so many ways of trying to voice out your own grievances as youth of this country. We have not seen so much of this, you know, engagement with the media, especially before the EndSARS thing. We only saw it and then it blew up, and there we are. I mean, do you think there was enough communication with the authorities concerned and our leaders in this country?
Well, thank you once again. Like you said, my name is Gideon Obo.
Well, I think there have been enough communication with the government even before this EndSARS started. All these years, I believe the youth must have been trying to speak to the government, just like he rightly said. If the government have tried in their possible way to engage the youth in all that they've been doing, I believe that by now, these EndSARS things would not have reached to this point. The communication you're talking about, all this through all these medias, most of the times, the youth have been trying their best to talk to the government concerning the things that have been happening, but still, I don't think the government are ready to listen. But now I believe that with all these things happening, the government must have put themselves together to listen to the youth. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gideon. Maimuna Tanimo, in your opinion, what happened? Where was the disconnect?
You know, society has gotten to a point where everyone has a responsibility, but nobody wants to, take it upon themselves to face the situation. You know, the fundamental and obligation of every state is to ensure the security of lives and property of its citizens. And failure to do so will make the state to be illegitimate. That is to say, every human society is basically on security. And this is what we are lacking in Nigeria. The recent protest that happened in Nigeria basically is lack of
It looks like you have an issue with your eye. We'll give you some time to sort that one out, and then we'll return to you.
No, I'm just feeling a little anxiety. Yeah. Okay, you know, recently what happened with this EndSARS protest is bad leadership. Likewise, in the recent few weeks, what happened for the palliative items and odd lootings, the government have provided enough resources for its citizens, but due to lack of bad leadership, look at what it ends to us. Private sectors have been looted and all this. I don't think is right.
What do you mean by bad leadership?
Bad leadership.
What do you mean by it?
Okay. For example, to represent your people in a democracy way, due to COVID-19 pandemic, they give the food items and some material to share it for the citizen. But some people, due to their own personal gain, they refuse to share it. And look at what happened. That's what I mean.
All right. Thank you very much, Memunat. We'll come back to you. Yunusa Akmadu, we already introduced you a while ago. Let's have your take on this. What broke down that then led to the EndSARS protests?
I think I will fault like 2 or 3 things here. One is a compoundment of issues, which have been one of the culture of our system, both the past and then even the present administration. The government on its side must learn how not to compound issues and pile them up. Because if you look at the result we're getting today, the grievances from all quarters is a result of compounded issues altogether. If you look at it, at some point, even when the government was now ready to address the issue of the SARS, more issues were being enveloped inside the EndSARS, which was now going to consume all of us if it's not properly managed. So I think the government at this point, my advice would be that they should learn how not to compound issues. As challenges come, people identify them. The government must be ready to address issues just the way they come. Secondly, I want to also put problems at the issue of trust. Now, in most cases, people who have been bestowed with responsibility to deliver, to meet up with the end users at the grassroots end, they are always not being sincere. Even if budgets are being released, monies are being given, some people will like to play smart or will take it for selfish interest. These are part of the issues. And then at the end of the day, you know, we're in a generation where people are getting wiser every day by day. Youth are not happy. We're just coming out from the hardship that have bedeviled us, the coronavirus pandemic. So many people lost their job. And I think the EndSARS gained momentum because of the, number one, joblessness. People are at home. Secondly, there are so many of our youth at home. For over 8 months now, people have not been engaged. Youth have not been going to school. So when such an opportunity comes for them to air out their grievance, it will be all-encompassive. That was why I talked about compounding issues. So our government must learn a lesson from this and see to it that as the challenges come, in every nation there are challenges. In every democracy, there must definitely be issues. There is no perfect nation anywhere as far as I'm concerned. But the compoundment of these issues will actually make it something else. And it might not be good for us. We are now in a situation where it was going to consume us if it is not properly managed.
Thank you, Yunusa, for your insight there. But let me get across to Kaduna and then see if Reverend John Hyap, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria, will give us greater insight into this. Just yesterday, I think the president said he's ready to talk, and he's been saying so all the while, asking the youth to come, let's talk, and the rest of them. I know President Buhari has been a very listening president all the while, but it so seems as if I personally is not convinced about the fact that there had been enough communication between the youth of this country and the government before the EndSARS protest.
Well, the issue of communication is key. And as you rightly said, we must commend the president, the vice president, because they actually taught other lieutenants what leadership is all about when this whole thing started. The vice president came out publicly through his Twitter account and apologized that we did not listen to you or act on time. The president also did show that concern that certain things were wrong. I think people have deliberately cut off communication between the president and the masses. These young people, we must see and celebrate that the investment we've put in them, sending them to school, is coming out now. They can see, they can reason, they will get disturbed about things that are not going right. But if there's no proper communication, it gives rooms for this. And you know, violence protest is actually as a result of the absence of, or when people's complaints or yearnings are not being heard. Sometimes they are tempted to go violent to draw attention. So there is this problem of communication. There is this problem of people who are supposed to really communicate with the youth, not communicating with the youth, but they put up stories out there as if the youths are. I'm sorry, just for purpose of education, one of the adverts you put up before we come into this conversation, where you talked about huge money belonging to youth, huge opportunity belonging to youth, have anybody really go and make research and understand that these things never really translated to Nigerian youth? Because these things end up in the hands of even older people. But because nobody talks about this, sometimes we mix up. So this youth, because of education, are beginning to say, wait a minute, you have just told us that you are spending 75 billion, and still we have 80% youth poor. Where did the 75 billion went to? And so on and so forth. So I must say that this EndSARS protest, despite the negative things that we see, we must look inward and learn good lessons and use them for the future. That's why we call youths together, number one, to appeal to them that things may have gone wrong, but Nigeria is bigger than the few individuals that caused those wrong things. So let's not destroy Nigeria because of them. Let's look at these things and correct them. But we must acknowledge things that are wrong in the first place. There was poor communication. The things we tell people exist, people cannot really see them and touch them and feel them. So who are those youths that are benefiting? One of our co-discussants here is a leader of the Nigerian Youth Council. You will agree with me, brother, that the Nigerian Youth Council, all over the 36 states of the Federation, including the national, sometimes are even handpicked, not even allow youth to democratically choose who they want to be. So sometimes the person who is handpicked, even if he speaks for the youth still feel that this one is speaking for those who pay the piper. So we just need to do some little change and we can overcome. Our youth are showing us that our investment in them is yielding fruit. But some evil people hijacked what they display. That shouldn't be the matter now. The matter is first celebrate that innovative they brought into the EndSARS movement and then correct areas that they went wrong.
All right. Thank you very much, the Reverend Hayab, for your comments. Let's bring in again Mukhtar Akoshile. Still on the issue of communication, what is it that the youth would like to see, hear, and read about, and how? I mean, this is a complex question that I've asked. It isn't as if you're not hearing me as I'm speaking now. And it isn't as if, as you were speaking, I wasn't hearing you. What are the channels of communication that the youth would like leaders at all levels to exploit? What are the issues? What are the platforms that you would like to see those in authority, whether in the private or public sector, exploit, so that as we are speaking, we can hear each other and understand each other and then act in terms of what our wishes are?
Thank you, sir. You see, the concept of communication is a very wide concept. And if I will break it down to only one, which I believe the Nigerian youth will want to adopt, is that government should try to listen to young people by having one or two person as a focal person in their policy making. So that person will now get back to the constituency, hold meetings with them, get the feedback, and present it to government as a policy. But the government of today are not sincere towards our young people. The just witnessed looting of palliative is just an eye-opener of how government will get social relief that are meant for the young people and go and translate it to sending their children and cronies to abroad and making it useful to it's just a very minute segment of the youth constituency, which is very, very, very not pleasing to Nigerian youth. Part of the lack of yesterday, I flew in from Sokoto in the evening yesterday. The governor of Sokoto celebrated the first National Youth Day. What we saw in the villa was not even comprehensive enough as a National Youth Day celebration. If I thought Mr. President has declared 1st of November as a day for the young people. Yesterday, the governor appointed a serving youth National Association of Nigerian Students Executive as a commissioner for youth. Yesterday, he donated a bus for the young people. And also, he said, the governor also, and he said, come with a plan, and I'll present it to Mr. President. There are people who are saddled with the responsibility of that. But we are not seeing it. We are not seeing it. Now, the minister was quoted to have said there are about 200 and something youth social investment that have been rolled out. The only one I can lay my hands on are less than 5. And that was why some young people even find it very difficult to believe in the 75 billion that has just been rolled out. But we advise them not to be deterred by what has happened in the past. Let us consider this as a new dawn. Because after that, I'm aware that our friend, the SA Youth to Mr. President Nasir Adama, has also kickstarted what we call the PS, Presidential Youth Investment Scheme, whereby all the young people, because recently some people say, okay, they were lootings and they were youth, they were hoodlums. I take exception by using the words of hoodlums. Because even if you want to critically assess those that even went on the looting, it is not only the young people. They were elderly there because these are people who are aggrieved. But it is not that we are coming to encourage what we have said. In one of the fora I attended an apology on behalf of Nigerian youth for any embarrassment that may have caused the president and any of those states that such a thing has happened. But if there is a proper communication I bet you all these things wouldn't have happened.
Sorry, you said of communication is broad, no question about that. And in narrowing it down, you were now talking about the utilization of a focal person
Yes.
who then communicates with the youth constituency.
Yes.
Well, Gideon, let's also bring you in here. Is it necessarily the case that co-optation in the governance structure would suffice as communication on its own?
Sorry, sir. Can you just repeat the question again?
Okay. Now, Mukhtar says that if you have a youth, as let's say in the governance structure, that youth can always link up with other youth who are his constituency and be informing them as to what is going on in government, what government intends to do, and then the person will also be carrying the feedback from the constituency, youth constituency, back to authorities so as to help shape the policy and programs of government. My question is, do you consider that fine or sufficient by way of communication, or are there other forms of communication you would like to see between those in authority, whether public or private, and the youth?
Well, I agree with him absolutely. I think if the youths are placed in authority whereby they can be able to relate to other youths, I just believe that yes, there will be a lot more, things will be a lot more easier for even the government. The thing that has been happening in this country is just because of that the youths are not really close to the government. They are not really telling the youth how things are being run in this country. If the youth are being placed close to the government, telling them that, hey, this is how things are supposed to be, and the youth that has been placed there come back to the other youth and tell them that, hey, the government says like this, I believe that the communication between the youth and the government will be fine. All these things that have been happening would not have happened. Thank you.
Yunusa, let me get to a while before I get to Kaduna and talk to Reverend John here up there. Yunusa, we're talking about, enough communication, enough channels of communication to be explored in order to reach to the target. Talking about the government and the leaders of this country. The youths are talking. When you look at the youth in this country, given the example of the EndSARS protest, you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of a very strong voice, of course, and you have a lot of things to say that should be heard. And of course, the government is hearing and listening to you right now. But it so seems as if hitherto there hasn't been much utilization of this energy positively, so much so that it had to result in a protest and sometimes in this negative thing that fell out of the protest. What's your take on that?
I think recently I was misunderstood when I came out to say my stand that in as much as I stand with the Nigerian youth for asking for a better life, for good governance, and for justice to all, I was misunderstood because I feel that you cannot be in the roof and you're lighting it off to burn down. Or if you're in the glass house, you shouldn't throw stones. Or if you want to throw stone in the marketplace, you should not forget that perhaps your mother or one of your siblings might be buying foodstuffs there too. What do I mean? Nigerians belong to all of us. We're energetic youths, and God has given us all the abilities that we have. We should be positive in our conduct and behavior. And then if we realize that whatever we are doing, it is not in the interest of security, I think we should be able to re-strategize and advise ourselves, come back to the drawing board, and be able to come up with something that will not destroy the unity and peace of our country. I think that is the kind of youth that we will be able to deliver if we... And we needed to understand something that at some point, as youth, your timing matters in every plight or agitation we want to push. We can look at, we're just coming out from the corona pandemic that have hit everybody globally, and then we look at the timing very well. I thought that this year would have been a year for survival for almost all of us to be able to survive. But on the other side too, the government have to devise means to see how they bring this closure, a communication with the youth, because that is lacking seriously. Just like Akosh have said, we can't remember in the last 2 years when there is a youth engagement. I could remember it was Barrister Ishmael, the SSA youth, Mr. President, who once called us, even before in 2014, for Unity Diversity Conference, which I was a participant, and we all sat down, we discussed Nigeria on the table. I even share part of my plight as an MCT indigenous person. So as much as we must push our plight as the youth of this country, we must also have Nigerians at heart. Then we must be careful of politicians and other interests that want to hijack our genuine purpose, because I think that is what happened here. The Nigerian youth initially, this EndSARS protest that I am part of and was part of, the initial genuine initiation process of the whole thing was hijacked. I'm very, very sure. I don't want to label anybody, but it was hijacked by maybe some politicians or some bad eggs who perhaps may have joined the protest as a result of joblessness, or they were just asked to come in, or they realized that the protest was getting the result. So they were sent in there to destabilize and spoil everything. And look at where we find ourselves today. Destruction everywhere, looting and all that. Now, if you look at the commissioner of health in Kogi State, he was weeping in his tears because the equipment, the hospital equipment, they went to loot. I mean, what will a Nigerian youth be doing with that? So I'm of the opinion that if we must continue to push and demand more from the government in every administration, but we must not forget the fact that we cannot destroy our own Nigeria with our own hands, because most of these people who are supposed to have phased out in the system will definitely, either they like or not, they will definitely hand over power to the youth. So at the time they hand over power to us, should we not proceed from where they have left it, no matter how we met it? Should we have been going backward to those days? I think we shouldn't be involved in any destruction. We shouldn't be involved in any violence. We should try as much as possible to maintain and manage our crowd. If we must go out with crowd, we can't go out with crowd on a protest and say we do not have leadership. I don't think it's proper as youth. I think I have led one of the most successful, peaceful protests in this country as a young man. And by the grace of God, whenever I take people to the street of Abuja, I try as much as possible to monitor the hijack of a thing, because that is one thing you must not take away in a protest. When some bad eggs will just come, they might be sponsored, they might not be sponsored, they might be sympathizers who end up seeing the gridlock, the way and manner the road is blocked. They will just hijack the whole thing, and then they become hoodlums. If you look at some of the people who were looting, maybe perhaps none of them have ever stolen anything before in life. But because there is a free opportunity that have come, somebody have given an avenue and reasons. So I think communicating with the youth in almost all the 774 local government in Nigeria is important. There should be a real youth representative, and there should be a communication means where the youth can report directly to the government. A presidential monitoring team, maybe to be headed by the SGF, that the youth can just sit down or via their Twitter line or their website, they will write and be able to send messages. They will be able to query their worries and say all those things that are disturbing them. I think that will go a long way. The youths must be given attention, and then the government must not always delay when it comes to the priorities of the youth. If really the government can accept with us that we are the leaders of tomorrow, so we should be given that attention as the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.
So Ahmed, Reverend John Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. Your voice as youth is very huge, as I said, and of course the government is listening. Let me take a cue from what you earlier said in your submission, that you gave an instance with the National Youth Council or Nigerian Youth Council, that even in trying to get their leaders in place, they were sometimes handpicked. And this doesn't obtain in other organizations like civil society organizations and some other unions and associations, because they seem to be strong and standing firm on their own members to elect who they want so that they can have their interests pushed forward. Is the youth of this country not letting go of its own strength by allowing it being hijacked or rather being interfered with by certain forces and interests in this country?
When you look at the rate of poverty in this country, people are hungry, people are out of school, people have no job. A young man knowing that his mother needs to do terrible things just to cook food in the house. Such situation exposed these young men to giving in cheaply to everybody who want to exploit them. The reality is that most people who do this also want sometimes to do what we call a divide and rule system among the youth. If you are such an intelligent, a vibrant, and organized young man, even if your friends love you, they will look for someone who is going to be uneasily bought over, and they think that using him will work. When we have EndSARS like this, you will know the reality that he cannot go to the youths and speak to them. At Global Peace Foundation, there's something we've come to realize, that there are people sometimes that are seen as not important people. We find them important people. In certain villages or community, a motorcycle mechanic is the most important person. But in another world, they look at him, oh, it's just not a mere motorcycle. No. Some of these youths hail him, they cheer him, they listen to him, walk with him, and you will get result. In some part of Kaduna that we've been intervening in the past month, we realize that even young boys that you think they are drug addicts, they need this friendship, they need this opportunity, they need this closeness. But sometimes when you just come and tag them as completely bad and nothing, and you feel only that young man who comes and gossip people around you is the good person, he does not have connect with larger youths. When we were holding our meeting last week, something came up. One of the young men who attended the meeting, the moment he came and raised his hand to speak, everybody in the hall started shouting, Oko, Oko, Oko. And I wanted to know this Oko. These are the things the youth like. Let's not forget that some of us who are adults today, we are once youths. Those things these young men are doing, we did them, we actually enjoyed them, and we didn't have this disconnect. But let me put it this way. In a world or age of education and technology, we have 1,000,001 channels that we can communicate with our youths. How much are we using education and technology to communicate with youths? Even when we open a Twitter account, do we really communicate with them, or we just pass order in the Twitter account? There is no, we say it and we want to hear their view. Sometimes even if they say their views, do we really go back to check in a day? What was the message I received as governor, as minister, as president, as SA from youth in my constituency in a whole week or in a whole day? What are those issues they raise? They've raised so many issues in many Twitter accounts, but nobody did anything about it. So they just assume the Twitter account itself is also not honest for them to communicate. We must also look at our culture. Culturally, we have this negative understanding about youth and women. We feel youth and women don't have a voice. It's only what we elders or the elders said that youth should do. We must change that culture. We must give those youth that. I always encourage that if it is in church, give the youth a voice. If it is in the mosque, give the youth their voice. If it is in every social gathering, give the youth their voices. Allow them speak. They may not say it right. They may not even say it the way you want it. But to express it makes them feel, oh, I have said it. Let me use a term commonly in northern Nigeria, where you speak to a big man, you say, even what you said was not true, you feel that you have actually spoken to the big man. Most of the youth surrounding the big men are probably SSS or security agents who will even push their fellow youths away, push them down, not to come close to the big man. I want to see big men in Nigeria coming down of their car and just shake the hands of the young men. It will even make security easier, because the young men will feel there's nothing to be afraid about this man. These communications we're talking about goes a little more than just appointment. But I understand the part the youth are talking about, having someone to be like the link man between them and government. But what is wrong for a governor to just sit among youth and talk with them? And sometimes when you are coming, you come in such a area that scared them and make them timid. No, allow them, just sit with them. Even if they are eating, eat like them. Let them feel that you are one of them. Sometimes when we look back and feel with nostalgia, how did we grow up? What kind of life do we live? Some of us, there are people in our community that say, I want to say something in Iska. Let me use a house of words in the north. But we end up becoming responsible people. So this young man that we see will be. I was sharing with the youth the other day that have you gone to meeting and see some youth with punk? And people just feel that for the mere fact that the young man has a punk, he is radical. It's not true. He has just been doing some fashion and enjoying it. Sometimes they have tattoo. Yes, you may not like tattoo, but just allow them feel that free. Then you can teach them about if there's any danger at all. All these youths want to see is a door open for them to be heard, a door open for them to come in without being afraid, a door open for them to say even those wrong things that they are saying. Then you can now joyfully say, oh, wow, I love this, but this is another way you can do it. So once we do that with our youth, we will. And these people who come to hijack protests and others, I'm telling you, all we need to do is some opening. They are not in the majority. The good youths are in the majority. That's why I like what the other young man said, that don't even call them bad names, hoodlum. No, that's not good. If your child does anything bad at home, you don't call him a criminal, you don't call him a thief, you don't call him stupid, you rather guide him to do right. So but when you begin to say youth are hoodlums, youth are criminals, those words just make them harden. So I think since we are looking at Nigerian youth as peace ambassadors, let's use good language for these peace ambassadors. Let's be friendly to these peace ambassadors. Let's be accommodative to these peace ambassadors. And let's be honest. I'm a father. I have children. They watch what I'm doing. My child sometimes will come to the house and pick the phone and sit and do what I'm doing on phone. These young men have not yet finished learning. They sometimes want to do the things we are doing. So how do we just come up and help them do what is good? So as responsible leaders, we must help these young men to know we love them. And I must say I'm so proud of Nigerian youth. I'm not happy with the destruction. I'm against the looters. I'm against those who hijack. But I am celebrating those honest youth who came out to show that the knowledge they've acquired wasn't in vain and they can use it for Nigerian good. So Mr. President has also shown that he's a true father, a true grandfather, listening to them and saying, come, let's dialogue. That's a good opening. When we build on that, we will neutralize the few ones who hijacked or the few ones who looted or the few ones who caused pains, but focus on helping the other ones to feel, wow, so what I did is good, but I had some errors. Oh, they are correcting me, they are guiding me, and they will learn. Give them another 5 years, give them another 10 years. They may be sitting where you are sitting to interview some people, probably not me. If they are going to interview at that time, they will be interviewing an old man. But that's how life is. When we give them such opportunity, then they know we are close. If you are with your son at home and you don't talk to him every day because you are now a big man, you don't have time for your son, there will be a problem. There is no big man when it comes between father and son relationship. We are members of one family as we preach in Global Peace. Let's treat these children as members of family so it will go round. Okay, they are our children. Come. What went wrong that you have to destroy a car? Can you tell me, son? Can you tell me, my daughter? And she will feel happy that daddy wants to speak to her. And she will now say, but dad, I asked for school fees. You allow strike to be too long. ASU have been on strike. We've not been in school. My colleagues are growing. Age is not on my side. I'm supposed to graduate. Tiny things they will say, but it makes meaning. Now they will go and say, daddy spoke with me yesterday. And I'm happy that daddy was able to know what are my pains. So these young men, we need to open better communication. We need to understand where they are coming from. And we need to also remember we were once there yesterday.
Thank you very much, the Reverend Hayab, there for your elaborate caution and advice to both the youth and the parents and indeed other guardians. Let's come back to the studio. Just before I bring in Memunat, I wanted to bring this to Mukhtar Akoshile to also clarify this. You were saying something about the 75 billion naira fund that's just been unfolded by the government for the young persons to access. You were expressing some pessimism about that. You said that for the numerous programs that the government has had in the past, it's only a few you can identify. I'm just wondering, what exactly is happening, in your opinion, amongst young people? Because you have divergent views on this. I'll give you an example. SIP, that's the social investment program of the current administration, and power and health and the various branches of all that. There are young persons who have been on Good Morning Nigeria over the years saying that they didn't have to know ABC before they got enrolled on the program and they were receiving their stipends. We have had young persons come on this program to demonstrate what they've been able to do with the funding that they got from the social investment programs. Now the question then arises, how did these persons get the information? How did they latch onto it? How then did they utilize it? Is it necessarily the case that perhaps among young persons you have a group that will say, look, nothing good can come out of this environment. So, no, this one, if you don't know X, Y, Z, it's not going to work. You just have some persons who have shut their minds or their information system to otherwise positive news that is coming out there, which they can exploit. What is happening?
Yes, thank you so much, sir. I will agree with you on the fact that the government social investment programs that it had to be introduced are being a great success, because we have part of our people, we have a feedback mechanism on how. But what makes that project to be a success was that project was it had to be handled by an office, which we have Dr. Uwais, Barrister Ismail and co as managing that office. And those programs, before they rolled them out, there were consultations, there were town hall meetings, there were trainings for young people, there were dialogue on how these programs will be rolled out. And it went through all the states of the Federation, including FCT. And those programs were successes. But when we talked about my concern and my fear about the 75 billion is that, number one, it is not sufficient. If you check about the number of young people in Nigeria and relate it to that amount in 3 years, it is not sufficient enough. One. Two, they have not been, okay, fine, there's a focal group that was constituted by the Honorable Minister to do some paper to see how the takeoff of the project will look like. But we have not even had the report of that committee. I have not had that to say, okay, we are coming to FCT, for example, to meet with the youth leaders in FCT to discuss on this fund. We just have, I'm aware that some people have started receiving text messages to say, okay, there will be trainings online. You understand? But that, to me, is not sufficient enough. Because the problem of Nigerian youth goes beyond 1 or 2 social investment programs.
I'm not cutting you short there.
Yes.
Not sufficient. How do you want to make it sufficient?
We will make it more sufficient for, number one, the president of the President Muhammadu Buhari, who is actually doing well, to give a directive to all state governors to also have their own social investment programs for the youth of that state. This is from the federal government, and it will be youth from all states will also benefit. But for all state governors should also come out to say, this is our plan for the young people in our state.
Let's clarify something, Mukhtar, and I think that will also be for the benefit of young persons who are listening to us. What you want is for state governments to have their own social investment programs, yes, targeted at the youth.
Youth of that state.
To imitate what the federal government is doing.
And to consolidate on it.
Not for the president to issue directives to the state governors. That will not work. You know why it will not work? Do you know?
No.
Okay. Do you know, Maimuna, why it will not work?
No.
Okay. Gideon, do you know why it will not work?
No.
Okay. You know, Sir Ahmadu, do you know why it will not work? You're listening to this conversation. To say President Buhari should direct state governors to also have social investment programs. But you can say state governments should have their own investment programs, but for the president to direct, it will not work. Do you know why it will not work?
I don't know why it will not work, but I don't see reasons why it shouldn't work, sir.
Let's clarify something. We have, I'm not sure if you studied government, but you know the system of government that we run. If it were a military regime where the Supreme Military Council or what the Armed Forces Ruling Council, so-called, will appoint the state governors who report directly to the president through the chief of staff. We had that over 20 years ago. it will be otherwise to say the president or military president or the head of state can issue directives. Now, you know, when you're having an election, you saw what happened in the 2019 election. The president had his own election, not so? The votes of the president were not assigned or allocated to those who contested for governorship. Isn't it? Hold on a second now. Hold on a second.
I get where you are going.
So the governors, hold on. Sorry. Let me just.
Also gotten from federation account.
No, just hold on.
And
Just
Mr.
hold on.
President will always be able to direct.
We are coming there. We are coming there.
I employ the state government to key into social investment, because if state government were not doing well, it will give Mr. President a bad name in even what he's trying to do.
Okay, just be patient. Just be patient, Mukhtar. Now you say you have changed the word. Earlier you said Mr. President should direct. Now you are saying Mr. President should implore. Are we communicating now?
Yes, we are.
So why would you ask the president to implore rather than direct?
Yes, see, Mr. President.
No, why? No, why? Let's get that.
No, because they are governance under the same administration, and the good if any. No, the truth. No, what you are saying is that because we are in democracy,
yes,
we are not in military era,
yes,
and everything has to go through legislation, perhaps. But what we are saying is that there is a forum at which Mr. President meets with the governors, and there are critical security matters that are being discussed in such a forum. There is economic council meeting, and this kind of talks can be brought in such a meeting to say, what are your priorities, Mr. Governor A? What is your priority for young people? Mr. Governor B, what is your priority for Governor B? Don't you think if you do this, it should be better for the young people of the state? So when I say it should direct, it doesn't mean that it should be autocratic to them. It means that it should tell them, to waking them up. Because if they do not do well, it will also give... Let me tell you, sir, Mr. President...
Why you are still on this?
Yes.
Just take this as an example. In the course of these protests and the ensuing crisis, the National Economic Council, headed by the Vice President, held a virtual meeting. And there were resolutions arising from that National Economic Council meeting for states to implement. I'm sure you have seen state governors already having interactions with youth.
Yes.
Edo has done
Yes.
so.
Osun
has done so. You have seen that in Oyo. Ogun has also done so. So are you seeing the structure and how it works?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Continue.
This is actually the trend at which I am going.
Okay.
If Mr. President sees something, all this, what we are discussing is a security matter, because if the youths are not well contented with the freelance they get from the top, there will be crisis. If the young people are not feeling the impact of governance, there will be crisis. Like you have said, FCT, I will give them kudos. Even when we divert from what you are saying and go to security matters of this state, there's what they call community policing. FCT is one of the few states that make sure that they do not have less than 6 or 5 young people in the community policing advisory committee in the state. Because it is me, as a young person, that knows the young person that is perpetrating a crime in that locality. It is not one elderly person who goes out in the morning and come back in the later. So in all this process, I believe when we strengthen it, what I meant by what I've said is just, Mr. President, to have a forum and monitor what governors of each state are doing in youth development. It must be a priority. You cannot, if the state, if Mr. President gives more concerted efforts to make sure that all the youthful, we talked about scholarship, we talked about social investment, we talked about so many things that the state government can come up and say, this is for our youth. And before I forget, sir, one of the very key things that this government should also do as a take-home for Nigerian youth is to please let there no be insistent ASU strike. Let there no be insistent ASU strike. ASU strike has caused more damage in this country than anybody could imagine. Let me be factual with you. The EndSARS protest that we just passed off was also strengthened because our young people are at home. If students are on campus where they know that attendance will be taken, when they know that they have to read for exams, who will they mobilize to come and say we agitated. It is not that the agitation is not right, but it will have lasted for 1, 2, or 3 days and to be enough. But because there are grievances already, I don't have a light, my road is not motorable, my tariff on when I buy 2,000 units of light, I cannot even read comfortably with it. I cannot go to school. You know, and we also, when the other day they said the EndSARS does not have a leadership, the Youth Council took it upon themselves, led by Sokobo, to say we are going to the Villa and National Assembly to submit the 5 of 5 demand officially, which we did. The Senate spokesperson and the House of Reps spokesperson came and received those documents. And it was a day after that Mr. President did the broadcast to say, I have received your demand and I am working on it. You see what I talk about the communication. This is also a communication issue. Because, of course, I do not blame Mr. President. If you are protesting and there's no directive, there's no direction, nobody is willing to come out to say, I am their leader. What am I acting upon? What document is Mr. President acting upon?
We'll pause you, Mukhtar. Nadabo, you see, the interesting thing about what young persons are saying is, let's bring in Memuna here. Part of what Mukhtar has indicated is, all right, he says president and governors should get all of this to say, let us have a youth agenda so that everyone begins to implement part of its own, the federal government at the top, the state, 36 states, the FCT, 774 local governments, and things should be going on fine. Do you find this engagement, I don't know where you operate from, where you are domiciled, or where you reside, but do you think that this kind of engagement will be useful, whether from the economic point of view or generally?
Yes, to me, it's going to help us a lot, because what we are going into now in Nigeria is lack of security. Like what I say in the beginning of this conversation, security is I don't know how to put it, but you know, the security is everything.
You say it's the primary purpose of government.
Yes.
You said that earlier.
I said it. And from what is happening in the northern states of Nigeria is not helping. You know, ASWA is on strike, and there is problem of boundary in those Katsina state. To me now, when ASWA call off strike, I don't think I will be able to go back to that state, because what is happening is affecting the students and is lack of security. What happened in the southern Nigeria is also lack of security. I believe this SARS, the reform of SARS will be beneficiary both from the northern Nigeria and the southerners. You know, southerners are against SARS, while the northerners are supporting SARS. If you can look it from the both sides, if the government will put it on the table for each and everybody, both parties, you know, to have, I don't know, to have enough to benefit in the situation. You know, there is a high rate of insecurity in the north, likewise in the south. And I will agree with what he says on for the federal government to have direct, you know, representative for the youth. I will go with him. I think it will help us.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Maimunat. We shall come back to you. And gentlemen, we're very glad that you've been giving us great insights into this. We shall talk about EndSARS protest, Nigerian youth as peace ambassadors, when we come back from this break. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. We'll now take a break. We'll be back in a moment to discuss more on this topic.
Demands of #EndSARS movement. Immediate release of all arrested protesters. Justice for all deceased victims of police brutality and appropriate compensation for their families. Setting up an independent body to oversee the investigation and prosecution of all reports of police misconduct within 10 days. In line with the new Police Act, psychological evaluation and retraining to be confirmed by an independent body of all disbanded SARS officers before they can be redeployed. increase police salary so that they are adequately compensated for protecting the lives and property of citizens. Federal government's response. On 11th October 2020, the Inspector General of Police dissolved the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, across the 36 states police commands and the Federal Capital Territory. On October 12th, President Muhammadu Buhari addressed the nation, stating the disbanding of SARS is only the first step in our commitment to extensive police reforms. On 13th October 2020, the Inspector General of Police ordered all defunct SARS personnel to report at Force Headquarters, Abuja, for debriefing as well as psychological and medical examination. On 13th October 2020, the Presidential Panel on the Reform of SARS accepted the 5-point demand of the #EndSARS protesters. On 15th October 2020, the National Economic Council, NEC, directed the immediate establishment of state-based judicial panels of inquiry across the country to receive and investigate complaints of police brutality, related extrajudicial killings with a view to delivering justice for all victims of the dissolved SARS and other police units. State governors should immediately establish state-based special security and human rights committees to be chaired by governors in their state and to supervise the newly formed police tactical units and all other security agencies located in the state. This will ensure the protection of citizens' human rights. Members will also include representatives of youth and civil society as well as head of police tactical units in each of the states.
My name is Nando Jamda
Muhammad.
Stevita
Hussein Musa. Roduna Joel Finji. Said Musa. John.
I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this for more than 8 years now.
Ina sai da plantain. Na kai kimamin shekara uku.
I've been selling my tomatoes for about 10 years now, and I do it for a better Nigeria.
Ina wannan sana'ar lemu ne domin Najeriya ta ci gaba. Ina sa domin Najeriya ta kyau. And you can see how we are doing our small little work to make Nigeria great.
As you can see, I'm a technician and I'm doing it to help myself and to help my generation.
Ina zaune ne a Plateau na business. Kuma ina yin wannan domin ci gaban ƙasar Najeriya.
For a better Nigeria.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Right. Good morning, Nigeria, reaching you from the studios of the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network. We'll now take tweets before we get down to the concluding part of the discussion on EndSARS protest Nigerian youth as peace ambassadors. We start with Festus Akim Boyewa, who says, while EndSARS protests are legitimate, all our youths must embrace peace if they must have a country they can call their own. Time to end the protest and work with government to solve the many challenges facing our country.
Leo Fadaka, who's one of our regulars, tweets, says, only peace can guarantee youth development and Nigerian youth must embrace it. He said they were divided in protests but united by hunger with, according to him, food lumps. Instead of hoodlums, it writes food lumps. That's hoodlums in plutocracy. Nigerian youth must embrace peace to build a nation of their dreams. So this is a nice coinage, so that those who raided the warehouses were actually hoodlums in plutocracy. All right, Leo Fadaka, thanks a lot for those coinages.
Oh, that's it. We should recall, says Low Alpha C, we should recall the statement made by Governor Otum that the leaders have failed the youths of this country when addressing protesters in Benue, while acknowledging the fact that Nigerian youths are naturally talented.
Ibrahim Moduaje, it's quite unfortunate that even the educated among the youth were being pushed by subversive elements to be on the streets, despite government's accent to their demands. The youth should be made aware of their conscience and not to allow themselves to be misled on social media by what he describes as enemies of peace.
And Dele Jackson Solomon says, as catalysts of social networking and interaction, Nigerian youths have a key role to play in uniting the country and making sure that things work out well, and governments at all levels must give them the enabling environment to do so. At this time of national tension, we implore all the youths in Nigeria to be bridge builders, that is, and to shun any form of violence. God bless the Nigerian youths.
Mike Ayankwo, now it's incumbent on all Nigerian youth to be peace ambassadors and nurture and protect what we have as a nation. Although the EndSARS protests were unfortunate, but they created avenues for the voices of the youth to be heard by people in authority. But allowing criminal and undesirable elements to infiltrate the protests and causing all types of criminalities is unacceptable.
Well, Ladimeji has a very short and cute one here. He says, Nigeria is ours. Let us give peace a chance. God bless.
Cecilia Koroma, is the right of the Nigerian youth to clamor for good governance from our leaders, but let them not destroy the country that they want to lead.
Rafiu Adeniran Lawal says the protest was a reaction to the long-term denial and neglect of socio-economic and political conditions that the young people need to manifest their aspirations. These denials must be concretely addressed.
Festus Akimboyewa, nothing can justify the destruction of private property, businesses, and critical assets by a section of our youth, which has now compounded our challenges. While government must hear the voices of our young ones, the youth themselves must be involved in peace building across the country.
And for Nigerian youth to accept, being peace ambassadors, says Innocent Yawal James, there must be strong connect between them and those who represent them. There is a disconnect in the system of governance in Nigeria. Unless the issue of youth unemployment and poverty rate is addressed, the youth will remain unfriendly to people in power. And these are the tweets we have. But let's get started after this with this small tweet from Oladimeji Morufu, who says Nigeria is ours. I'm talking to you, Maimunat. Nigeria is ours, and let us give peace a chance. God bless. This topic today is peace. Is all about peace. EndSARS protest, and of course, Nigerian youth as peace ambassadors. What's your take on this? How peaceful have you been in trying to build a good Nigeria?
Just because they refuse to share our palliatives, that doesn't give us the right to destroy our nation. Nigeria is our identity. We can't destroy our nation just because the government have failed us. And, the youth of Nigeria are not lazy. Each and every one of us is trying to survive. And Nigeria is a blissful country. And we are, Nigeria are the politicians of Nigeria are the highest paid of politicians in the world. Yet, the masses are hungry. But still, we are surviving. Let's just give peace a chance. I will go with him.
All right. What gives you the impression that Nigerian politicians are the highest paid in the world? Which comparative study or comparative data did you use to arrive at that position?
If you look at the healthcare sector, you can't compare what a senator is getting with what a lecturer is getting. You can't compare what a senator is getting with what a teacher or a health care sector is getting. And teachers are the fundamental and foundation of everybody.
You saw what the president announced recently in terms of a new deal for teaching and teachers in Nigeria. Retirement age has been increased, bursary and scholarships, and all kinds of benefits for the teaching profession. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
So?
But basically, to be frank, when the president announced that so person is going to get this, before it will reach you, maybe by then you are dead.
No, if it is implemented, why will you be dead?
You are dead because for it to reach you is another thing.
No.
That's what is happening presently in Nigeria.
No.
For you to get job,
it's not happening.
It's happening. For you to get job in this country, you must know somebody.
Oh, well, now, let's talk about...
This views, you know, earlier, when we were illustrating some of the aspects of the social investment program, we did say that persons who accessed the social investment programs didn't have to know, as the saying goes, jack, before they got engaged, and they were being paid. So they didn't know anybody, and Mukhtar confirmed that.
You know, there was one website for youths, Abundant that I saw it on Instagram in the last 2 weeks. But for me to get access to it is not. I have been trying to log into the website, but I couldn't.
Maybe your network is very
not
weak.
My network.
All right. maybe her network is very weak.
No, it says as if this old feeling that you got to know somebody before you get something in this country. But it seems it's giving way gradually anyway. It's giving way gradually. The present administration has been doing a lot in that regard. Let's get to Reverend Hayat there in Kaduna. You are the country director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. Let me go through a cut here for you from one of the conveners of National Youth Peace Summit in 2019, Kinyemi Olokeri in Bauchi. He says, as catalyst of social networking and interaction, Nigerian youth have a key role to play in uniting the country and making sure that things work out well. However, it is very disheartening that most of the crimes committed in the country are associated with youths. Now, looking at this court and looking at what really happened in the past 3 weeks and looking at some other negative tendencies among youths, armed banditry, some other crimes and the rest of them, how do you see the issue of peace building in this regard? How do we get these youths off the hook, off this negative hook, in trying to ensure that this country remains peaceful and youth send their messages to the appropriate authority in the most peaceful way?
Thank you very much. Well, I understand the court, but I think Nigerians must know that our youths are one of the most united youths. They are united in sport, they are united in school. We don't have a separate exams for some class of youth and other groups of youth. There's no religious exam for youth. It is just exams. In class, they are colleagues, they are friends. The fact about it is that it is when they are out of class and they are out of these sports where they get united that some selfish element among the privileged elites begin to plan among them seat of discord and divide them. So we must emphasize that aspect of their unity than use one small thing and say they are not. Nigerian youth are really peace ambassadors. What we need to do is to give them space to display that peaceful attitude or that peaceful skills that they have. They are doing that in school, they are doing it in sport, they are doing it even in technology. They don't separate, they just love themselves, they just cherish themselves. When you talk about banditry, in fact, have you really checked the videos of most of the bandits? The larger number of the bandits are really elders, not youths. They just recruit youths who are hungry and just give them guns to shoot. But we have seen many of the videos. So when you read the percentage, you see that the youths are not. I have said this earlier and I want to repeat it now, that we must find a fast way of addressing our children with love, addressing them with respect, addressing them with hope, addressing them with good language and good words, giving them good name, than just wanting to call a dog a bad name to hang it. The youths are not. Those who go to shoot and steal in banks, check their age. They are not even 35. Because when you talk about youth, we will now begin to define how old is someone to be a young man. You will see that there were 45 to 50 to 60 age people in 10, and then probably 3 youths that can easily run. So when you now tag everybody in that team as a young person, we are not being fair to Nigerian youth. So at Global Peace, what we do is that we want to help young men to see that, look, there's a potential in you, and we can see it, and we know how important it is. So come out, be that good peace ambassador, so that people will see. And then you can change the story or the stereotype that is going on out there, that young men are the criminals, young men are this. I've been to many drug addict center or center of training drug addicts to rehabilitate them. And I see the people involved. Some of them are even teachers in schools. Their age is far, far out of the youth category. But because they are doing something wrong, everybody just calls them young people. So I think we must give our young people credit because they are in life. Earlier today we were discussing and someone talks about they had a group, they were protesting, they didn't have leadership. It's an innovation. It's an innovation because in most cases, experience have shown in this country that when you have a leader, when he is called into a meeting, an envelope is given to him. Even if no envelope is given to him, he will come out and speak a different language and there will be a division. So the youth chose that we don't even need to have a non-leader. We just need to come together. It's an innovation that we're supposed to celebrate and then improve it than just be critical of it. I am so proud of Nigerian youth. I'm happy with what they are doing, but I'm actually also worried about those few elements who are causing havoc today, who are destroying property, and I have a message for them that, look, destroying property do not make you rich, destroying property do not make things change. Destroying property only destroy what you will get, because if you destroy a government building or you burn government cars, the money that will be used to replace the cars, since governance must continue, will be your money. So instead of destroying, stop destroying government property, stop destroying private property, find a channel to communicate your grievances. And what we are doing is that let's have a link. Your community leader, your faith leaders, some senior citizens around you, can you tell them the problems you feel is going on in Nigeria and let them voice it out? When we have such kind of avenues for youth, we will not be thinking that youth are, I think some people among us, when they come to public, they want to say something so terrible about the youth to gain some favor, which is not right. I'm a father, and every day I tell my children, I want to see you build Nigeria. I want to see you be an example in Nigeria, example in honesty, example in keeping to time to work, example in ensuring that only what legitimately belongs to you that you go after. So when we emphasize that, we will. I was celebrating you a while ago when you were asking them, do they know why the president cannot give directives to the people? I wanted you to really conclude that, because this is the way we teach our youth. Simply what you wanted them to understand is, in a democracy and in a federalism, the one we are operating in Nigeria, the governor don't take directives from president. They can work together, but the governor cannot just direct president. President cannot just direct governors, just like governor will not just direct local government. And the youth will now understand, oh, so the president can suggest things for them. Because one of the things they were saying that probably the language wasn't clear for us to know is, if the president comes up with a good program, because there is no existing program in the state, when the president's program is coming to the state, in some states it will be hijacked by governors, and so only the friends and close people to the governor that will benefit. But if the governor already has his own program and the president also has a program, it will be a triple blessing. The governor's program, the president's program, and whoever, any other private sector program, then more people will be involved. If you check some of this exercise we do, you will find out that the same name that appear in the first program is the same name that is appearing in the third program, the fifth program, the sixth program. That's why sometimes these things do not really go around to the people. But in order to help the youth.
All right, the Reverend Hayab, thank you very much. We're on the home stretch, and we have to interject so as to bring in one or two of the other guests. The point you were talking about, concluding that relationship between the president and the governors, I think Mukhtar himself discovered it when he now used what we now say is the right word, implore rather than direct. So very interesting that you also grabbed that yourself, Reverend Hayab. I would have asked you this question, but I want to pop the question to Yunusa Ahmad. Yunusa Ahmadu, you know, there is a saying that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. I'm not quite sure how familiar you are with policies, government policies and all that, but if you are, please take advantage of it. Do you think that there is too much emphasis on a relationship with politics and politicians and every person becoming an entrepreneur? Rather, as the youth, what the focus, some persons would argue, should be on building the body and the mind. Of course, the mind will take you to levels of scholarship and so on and so forth, but the body. Why is it, for instance, that, say, you're from the FCT, we don't have competitions involving, say, Abaji rockets against Gwagwalada bombers? whether it's in a football match or it's a volleyball competition or basketball competition. Our sister Memora was saying, no, there's banditry in the north, XYZ, just as you have restiveness in the south. I once asked the question, listen to this question, it was an article, how many swimming pools are there in the Niger Delta? So we can train and produce world beaters in swimming. For those who are in the north, how many long-distance runners can we produce? How many experts can we produce for the Olympics in archery, in shooting? Those who are shooting now as bandits, can they not be trained to become shooters at the Olympics? So are we focusing sufficiently on sports, whether in the private sector, or the public sector, so that the youths can have organizations, they can have competitions right from the grassroots up to the national level and then to the international level?
Thank you so much, sir, for this question. Now, first of all, I want to balance and analyze the issue in two ways. Now, as Nigerian youth, I think we will carry part of the blame while the government carries part of the blame. Of a truth, although I would have, maybe before I round up, I would like you to allow me answer my Munat on the palliatives and also Pastor Joshua on the leadership and all that. But let me quickly address this one that you have asked me. Now, on the part of the youth, I have been a grassroots mobilizer, a grassroots person. Most of my life has been community service and all that. Now, in so many cases, some of our youth, it all starts like this. We must change ourselves before we begin to change the system. Then we'll ask for good governance. I think that is very important because I don't want to treat the youth with hand gloves here and at the end of the day, I'm not being honest. When it comes to decision making in politics, I think that should be the primary stage. Where are the youths? You know, today we are having all this on and on and on, and then we are having recyclement of people in power, and we are all saying that it is the fault of those people, or they have taken power to themselves. It is because the youths of Nigeria have not stood their own grounds. So many of the youths on the street, people looting today, or the hoodlums who hijacked it, or since the pastor said we shouldn't use that word for our own youth, I agree. So many of them do not even have the PVC. So many of them, when it comes to making decisions in this country, as much as the 70% we have as population, as Nigerian youth, they are not part of the decision making in this country. We cannot grow forward if we cannot change our attitude. If we want to be like Americans, we must behave.
Yeah, truly speaking, Yunusa, you've made a great point there. And we must really thank you for being part of the discussion this morning. It's our pleasure you've been with us. Memuna, it's our pleasure. We hope to see you much more on this program again.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you. Mokhtar, thank you so much for your insights. Hope to see you more.
Thank you. Youth as peace ambassadors, I want our youth to be peaceful. You know, the definition of a peace ambassador is someone who is characterized with all the good values, and that is what we want to be seen our youth as.
Yes, without peace, there wouldn't be any development, really. Gideon Obon, it's our pleasure. You've been with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We must also thank you very much, Reverend John Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. We loved you, we liked you, and then we experienced much more of your expertise, and we hope you'll be coming to us on Good Morning Nigeria whenever the time gives us the time to. It's our pleasure. I'm Yusuf Nadab Usman. See you tomorrow.
All right, program is back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Kingsley Osadolo.
More media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before